The next slide, please. And so as Dean Rowe mentioned, some of the health, social justice.
Okay.
That's good. And then the next slide after that. Yes, good. So Dean Rowe mentioned some of the pandemics that Blacks in the United States suffer. So economic, health, social justice, and so forth. Also Black entrepreneurship, trails in the United States. That's of no surprise to most. Only 4% of Blacks own business, and that compares to 12% and greater percentages for whites and other groups in the United States. Blacks own only 2.6 million businesses. If we close the gap, that number would be more like 8 million businesses. I think somebody can mute that phone, thank you. All right, so only 130,000 of those businesses have at least one employee. So 95% of Black firms in the United States do not have a single employee. Their average yearly revenues are $72,000 before expenses are even removed. Recently in Brooklyn, New York City, 300,000 businesses were registered. 63,000 of those were registered by Black owners, and only 2,000 of them had at least one employee. So what all this shows is that the lion's share of Black-owned businesses are single-person firms. And we all know that entrepreneurship, small businesses, those are the biggest contributors to net new jobs in communities. And so what we're showing here is not seen. The last thing I'll also tell you is that in New York City, in spite of comprising 1/5 of the total population, Blacks only own 2% of the businesses in New York City. Next slide, please. Oh, that's it, that's good. So this paper proposes a 2-year project, and what we want to do is we want to close a research void. There's not enough data on Black entrepreneurs, and there's not enough data on informal economy entrepreneurs in the United States. Next slide, please. Next slide. So I think the next slide is going to show informal economy, which is also referred to as the unregistered economy. And the informal economy is where business transactions are not recorded. They're not taxed, they're not licensed, nor are they regulated. So purchasing, selling, inventory, those transactions are not captured. Research shows that Blacks, more so than most other groups in the United States, are likely to operate businesses in the informal economy for a lot of reasons, many of which Dean Rowe touched on today, and also Director LaShawn Muhammad, she touched on yesterday as well. And so by operating in the informal economy, it contributes to us seeing lower numbers, such as that 4% and that 2% that I just mentioned. Also, businesses that operate in the informal economy, they're typically small, run by one person, they don't attract investment or debt financing, and they're most often born out of economic necessity instead of being born in response to some unmet market need. Next slide, please. All right, so there are 18 research published negatives for operating in the informal economy. Number 1, it restricts a business growth. Number 2, people can't find a business, as Dean Rowe just touched on, because these businesses operate in a hidden economy. Customers, vendors, and suppliers, investors, they just can't find them. Also, they become ineligible for debt and equity financing, because if I operate a business in the unregistered economy, my business is not a legal entity. It's not a thing. It's not a noun. Instead, it's a verb. It's an action. It's what I do. I can't go to an investor and say, hey, I want you to purchase 40% of what I do. So instead, I have to register my business as a formal legal entity in the formal economy in order to become eligible for debt financing. And there are many others. Next slide, please. So it's extremely difficult to collect information on informal economy businesses for obvious reasons, yet many researchers are doing so, especially on entrepreneurs in developing nations. It's also extremely difficult to collect data on Black entrepreneurs, especially in urban settings in the United States. However, difficulty is not enough not to do it. Working at Medgar College, we see a large portion of our students and community members, it appears that they register their business, they operate their businesses in an informal manner and in the informal economy. Next slide, please. So we call these business owners whether they operate in the informal or the formal economy. We call them campus entrepreneurs. And that's a student, a person who works at the campus, someone from the community, and it's a person who has either started a business or they want to start a business. And what we see is that these businesses are typically not yet fully launched. They're micro businesses, they're non-formalized, they're launched out of economic necessity in order to subsidize income. They're launched by a solo entrepreneur. They lack the type of growth scalability that they want. And then also they lack high technology and high attractiveness to lenders and investors. At Medgar College, we drastically want to change that. Next slide, please. And what we found is that the literature helps us to change that. There are four areas of the literature that provide promise. The first one is teaching the importance of opportunity recognition, teaching entrepreneurs how to recognize a real market. Please go back to the next slide. Please teaching entrepreneurs how to recognize a real market opportunity. One more slide. Yes, thank you. Teaching how to recognize a real market-driven opportunity as opposed to building something and hoping they will come and buy it.
Around 3 more minutes.
Okay, thank you. And so also validating that through the lean launch methodology, which is a business model canvas. The other one is teaching Black entrepreneurs how to reconfigure their social networks by becoming network entrepreneurs instead of solo entrepreneurs. Teaching Black entrepreneurs about financial markets and how to be more financially ready for investors. And then also teaching them some of the downsides of operating in the informal economy. Next slide, please. Next slide. So our research aim is primarily to collect data, create a teaching model, and then also increase the number of campus entrepreneurs who set a business up as a team instead of a sole person. High tech and life sciences is a major part of their product. They operate in the formal economy and they're likely candidate for corporate or debt financing. Next slide, please. So to connect with these entrepreneurs, we're going to develop what's called a web portal called Campus Entrepreneurs. Next slide, please. And the web portal connects 3 types of users. It connects campus entrepreneurs. Next slide, if you can, please. It connects campus entrepreneurs. And on this web portal, they're going to be able to showcase their products and services. The second group is skill set providers. I know it's frozen, but can we get to the next slide? The second group is skill set providers, and that's people who know how to code, people who know how to build websites, people who know how to do chemistry formulation testing, and then also people on campus who want to support these businesses. And we've already built earlier versions of this web portal, and they're actually live, and we're testing and so forth. All right, we believe that the model is going to be replicable at other institutions. Next slide, please. And I'm going to wrap all of this up in about a minute. All right, so everybody who registers on that, they're going to receive the assistance that you see, and that assistance is market demand driven. Campus entrepreneurs already come to us and they say, this is what we need. They come on our campus, they sit with us, we give them 45-minute, an hour, hour and a half, 2-hour sessions, and we go through that. Next slide. The last 2 slides show the targeted outcomes that we are going after. Next slide, please. But anyway, the last few slides. So this is a grant-funded project that we're looking at, and we hope to have a lot of people that have created a research survey, trained, full compliance, hiring at least per 1 employee, have different partners. They've set up pro forma financial statements. They competed in competitions successfully. A lot of this, next slide, please. A lot of this we're already doing, and we've done it in a bootstrap financing mechanism. And so in my last 10 seconds, this paper was written before the pandemic hit. Since the pandemic hit, I've partnered with people like Dean Rowe, Dr. Byron Price, Dr. Alicia Reed, Dr. Jacqueline Kisoto, and I hope I didn't mess up her last name, and Ms. Pamela Roach. And so we're taking this to a different level, but everything is good. And that's basically it. So I just wanted to share that with you all. Thank you so much for listening. Again, I apologize for the technology earlier and appreciate you. And please provide your recommendations later. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Crump. So due to the time constraint, I'd like to go to the second paper.